As I've said time and again, Cyberpunk 2077 is my most anticipated title alongside Death Stranding. In case you didn't know, Cyberpunk is unequivocally my favorite genre in any medium. My favorite movie of all time is The Matrix, and my all-time favorite video game series is Metal Gear, tied with The Legend of Zelda. And yes, folks, the Metal Gear series does feature a lot of cyberpunk elements, even if it isn't strictly cyberpunk, but that's a topic for another day. So yeah, the idea of the renowned CD Projekt Red studio helming this genre in full force with their adaptation of Mike Pondsmith's cyberpunk tabletop universe is like a dream come true to me. Now, the worst part about being excited for any game is the wait. Cyberpunk 2077 was announced 5 years ago on May 31st, 2012, and we are all still waiting. The best assumption right now is that the game will be out sometime in 2018 or 2019, which would make this a 6 to 7 year long wait from its announcement. Normally, such a long wait would frustrate and exhaust me, but what I love about the way CD Projekt Red is handling it is that they've barely said shit about Cyberpunk 2077 since the game was announced. They have been reserved and pretty much silent about this game. So while we know that the game is coming, we don't know anything about it. So when they do a big blowout, a gameplay showcase or whatever, it's going to be exciting. This is a stark contrast to how many other developers handle long development cycles. A prime example of this being the Square Enix game Final Fantasy XV, formerly known as Final Fantasy Versus 13. This was a game that was announced back in May 8th, 2006, and launched on November 29th, 2016, over a decade later. And what made the wait excruciating wasn't even the years, it was the fact that they just wouldn't shut up about this game throughout the years and months leading up to the game's launch. They kept showing or talking about the game every chance they got throughout the decade, and it got really exhausting. Just to give you an idea, I did this countdown retrospective series in the last 60 days leading up to the game's launch. So that's 60 videos that I did trying to compile the game's entire development history. Normally, I would do 30 days leading up to the game's launch, so 30 videos, but there was just so much news, information, things that they showed that I had to extend it to 60 days. And even then, I only barely managed to cram all of that information, the entire development history, into this series. It was nuts. Another game that's undergoing a similar process is another Square Enix game, Kingdom Hearts 3. This game was announced back in E3 2013, and they keep showing footage and screenshots to remind you that the game has so much potential and that it is coming, and it gives you hope that it's coming sooner than you think, except this hope is continuously shattered as the years go by, with no true release date in sight. Fortunately for Kingdom Hearts 3, it doesn't look like it'll be a 10-year-long wait. The current release window for the game is sometime in 2018, and assuming that the game doesn't get delayed, that means we're looking at a 5-year wait since announcement. Still a substantial amount of time, but certainly better than the wait for Final Fantasy XV. Also, with Kingdom Hearts 3, they at least seem to be maintaining the game's original vision, whereas with Final Fantasy XV, the final release was a very different game from when it was first announced as Final Fantasy Versus 13. And that's one of the risks that you take when you announce a game too early and keep talking about it and keep showing it. If something goes wrong with the game's development halfway through, or if something changes, you risk pissing people off and deflating hype. And even if the game's development does go smoothly, you risk showing too much of the game prior to release. This was a problem that Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain faced. Kojima released so many trailers of the game throughout the years leading up to the game's launch that by the time we saw all of these trailers, we had pretty much seen most of the game's cutscenes. Sure, they were all shown out of context, but much of the element of surprise was lost. So yeah, a lot can go wrong, and there can be a lot of negative impact to a game if you announce it too early, if you keep showing bits and pieces of it, and if you drag this out for years and years. I've always believed that the most efficient approach to a game's announcement or showcase is as close to the release date as possible. That way you can release the game when people's interests are still at its peak before that interest starts waning. Which is why I'm so happy about the way CD Projekt Red is handling Cyberpunk 2077. They aren't saying shit until there is shit to be said, until that shit's ready. They're biding their time and waiting for the right moment for a full blowout. Which is great because it's a lot easier to wait for a game when there is silence, when we can tune it out, when we can forget and stop thinking about it for a while until its eventual resurgence. So with Cyberpunk 2077, yes, we know that it's coming, and you can argue that it was announced a little too early, but it's nice that the developers aren't constantly making us think about it. They don't keep shoving promises and artworks and screenshots and footage little bits at a time throughout a long extended period of time. That's when exhaustion kicks in. CD Projekt Red seems to understand that marketing is a lot like a theater production. It's all about timing and understanding that you have a specific amount of time where you have the audience's attention, where you can maintain their attention. So they're making sure that the game is absolutely ready to be shown before they open the curtains and before the show begins. With the show itself being made to be as compact and dense as possible so it doesn't drag out too long. That's metaphor for them possibly taking the Fallout 4 approach and showing the game extensively just a few months before release. I think that marketing technique really helped out Fallout 4. It was just such a big surprise, and there was so much hype, and they maximized that hype by releasing the game earlier than people thought it would come out. Nobody expected that Fallout 4 would come out 5 months after announcement. And I think that CD Projekt Red is intending to do something similar. When they're ready to do this big blowout, I think maybe we'll only have to wait like 5-6 months before the game actually comes out, and it's gonna be great. Hopefully this is an approach that more developers will use in the future. I've honestly never understood the appeal of marketing a game throughout the course of years and years. All that does is spread the marketing and hype way too thin. It's exhausting, it's frustrating, and it just makes gamers feel deflated about this long overdue title. Now, it's important to note that CD Projekt Red does have the benefit of being a studio that has consistently proven itself to care about the quality of their games. Long stretches of silence from developers after the announcement of a game can often lead to assumptions of a troubled development history. But CD Projekt Red and their reputation reminds us time and again that they're just taking as much time as they need to make this game as good as it can be. They've proven with their past work that at the end of their long roads, we can always expect an awesome product. That's the expectation, of course. Hopefully, CD Projekt Red won't take advantage of our view of them, of their reputation, to hype up a game that doesn't end up living to its promises. I don't think that'll happen, but just saying. Anyway, that's it for this discussion video. Thank you for tuning in. I'd love to hear what you think about this matter in the comments below. Also, if you enjoy my content, I hope you'll consider supporting me on Patreon to help our community remain independent from third-party sponsorship and corporate interference. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out!